I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We've got some serious business to attend to. It is Whistleblower Day, and we're all very excited about that. I know many of us have been following along attentively, but we're going to go through it in depth today. But let's make sure the streams are working. Before we get going, it looks like things are alive and well, so let's get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about the Biden crime family and whistleblowers testifying in front of Congress. We've got two individuals who talked today and revealed what they know about the Biden crime family. These two fellows, Mr. Gary Shapley, we've talked a lot about him. We were following him along when the initial disclosures were made over to the House Ways and Means Committee. He's got an awesome legal team there on Twitter, and they have been at the forefront of a lot of this. But when they were proceeding forward, there was somebody else who was sort of tagging along named Mr. X, and we weren't real sure who that guy was. But turns out it's this guy, Mr. Joseph Ziegler, IRS Special Agent. So he has come out and identified himself. He's testifying under his own name, and he is, putting his reputation on the line now, saying, hey, take a look at me. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm communicating. I was a part of what I saw happen. And so, ultra shout out to these two guys. And really, before we get into everything, this is they're going to be in the thick of it now for the foreseeable future. There's a lot of very monstrous people out there who want this to stop immediately. And so there's going to be a lot of pressure to come down to bear upon these two guys. So we'll be thinking about them and praying for them, Mr. Gary Shapley and Mr. Joseph Ziegler. But we're going to go through this in detail. Okay, they were testifying most of the afternoon in Congress today. And so I broke it down into a couple different segments that I think make sense. I want to start with the people who've been leading the charge on this. We'll go through some of the opening statements from the conservatives, from the Republicans. In particular, we'll see what James Comer had to say to get us started. We'll see what Jason Smith, who's on House Ways and Means Committee, had to say about this, because he was the person you can see when we listen to him talk, you're going to say, oh, that's the numbers guy. That's the accountant of the bunch. And he's the person who's connecting all the dots and really detailing what happened here. So we'll see what he had to say. And then Jim Jordan's kind of the wrestler of the group. He's just out there saying, a lot of this makes sense. So we'll check in with him at the end of that first segment. But that will be the to get us started. Then I want to go through Gary Shapley's actual opening statement. And he has a ton of credentials. So we're going to actually do something called a credential booster. We're going to just go through his bio briefly. And I want to detail all of the things that he's done and been a part of. It's now open sourced. Anybody can go and challenge it, because this is the same thing that the left likes to do to us. They say, well, 4,000 scientists signed a letter. We're like, oh, okay. So, but this one's actually credible because this guy was working on the investigation, and he actually was embedded with this corrupt so-called prosecution. So we'll go through that. Now, he also put out an opening statement, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on the opening statement, but they are here. So if you do want to see the opening statements, the PDFs for either Mr. Shapley or Mr. Ziegler, they are here. They're in the mind map. You can get the mind map. You go to robertgouveia.com. You can sign up for the mind map, and then that will just show up in your inbox, and you can go and navigate and get the full statements, the full PDFs, along with the rest of the notes if you want them. But we'll go through Shapley's testimony. It's a bit longer. It's about 12, 13 minutes. So we'll see what he had to say in fine detail as he explains what he was a part of. Then we'll go through Mr. Ziegler's statement. And Ziegler's actually going to be speaking with CBS. Apparently, he's already done a CBS interview. So that's going to be an exclusive dropping probably tonight. And then he had an opening statement as well. So his opening testimony was a little bit shorter. And so we'll also jump in and see what Byron Donalds had to say, because Byron was asking him about the DOJ. Remember, these guys are with the IRS. And we've got questions certainly about the IRS and their role in all this. But the DOJ, they're the decision makers on a lot of this. The IRS agents, they're kind of like witnesses and investigators. And then the FBI, same thing. They're out there with their magnifying glasses, hey, where's all the crimes at? They're looking around. But then it goes back to the DOJ, and they're the choke point. They're the decision maker. And so it sounds like a lot of this was going up to one woman named Leslie Wolf. And Byron Donalds was asking about that specifically. And so I want to spend some time on that because there are certain mechanics in place. We're trying to identify who is operating those levers to slow roll this whole deal. Then, to give the Democrats a nice fair shake here, we're going to go through and see what they had to say about this. I've got a bunch of clips from them. Jamie Raskin gave his opening statement, and he said there's no evidence of any Hunter crimes at all. But then something pretty dang hilarious happened today, and we got to be ultra careful about this with our YouTube censors, because even Fox News censors and even all of the other censors out there had a little bit of a panic mode today when this dropped in session. Marjorie Taylor Greene literally held up a photo from Hunter's laptop, and it is a revealing photo, okay? Obviously, I can't play it here, all right? Not going to do it. This is a family show, all right? We're not going to be doing it. But she definitely did it, and it was hilarious. So I actually have the little segment from Fox, and they cut away from this. They're like, oh, the censor over there, he's like, oh, panicking, flipping all out. I hit the button, hit the button, man. And so we'll go through that. It's absolutely funny. And then we've got the Democrats are outraged, and they're saying this is like criminal activity from Marjorie. And we've seen this in other different governments where they're saying that if you republish anything that's on that Hunter Biden laptop, they're saying that could be almost like the revenge, prawn, a type of attack on him, which would be a criminal charge. Hilarious. So we'll go through that. Now, it's perfect because it's juxtaposed right after Raskin says there's no evidence of crimes. Now, we'll go through all of that. Now, they are saying that this is a two-tiered system, but not against Republicans, against Hunter, all right? That this is an unfair investigation. In other words, Hunter is the victim here. Dan Goldman, the guy who bought his Congress seat, is on that team saying, I can't believe this is even happening. I mean, Hunter's like the most innocent person in America. AOC is saying, oh, well, if you're going to investigate Hunty Poo, how about we go investigate Ivanka? And this is exactly what we've been talking about for a long time. And I thought they've already investigated everybody in the Trump's family. Is there anybody else they haven't gotten to yet? AOC wants more blood. And then Raskin was actually questioning, and we'll leave it with this one, Raskin is questioning the whistleblowers. And he's just, what does this all boil down to? What's the alternative theory? What's the alternative theory on this conversation? And the Democrats say it's probably just confusion. It's probably just simple confusion. So, not great. Not great from the Democrats. But we'll go through all of that, and you can see we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about and more, and different segments to attend to. And so, my friends, if you want to be a part of our amazing community, we'd love to have you join us. We have a great members-only community, and whether you join us on YouTube or whether you join us on Locals, we have a lot of fun. This morning, we talked about the 16 Trump false electors. They got charged with felonies. I think it was eight felonies apiece. We talked about who they were. The mayor of Wyoming, Michigan got charged. A bunch of Republican leaders, they just got charged, felonies. 16 of them, 8 felonies a pop, brought by this woman, Dana Nessel, Michigan Attorney General. We read through the complaint. I think this might be coming to a state near me or you here in Arizona and elsewhere, maybe Georgia. And so you can see they're now going after the Trump electors. Anybody on the team needs to be silenced and taken off the field. So we're going to be following that one as well. And that came out for our members this morning. We appreciate our members. If you'd like to join us as a member, the place where you can do that is watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do Trump docket updates. We take a look at what's going on with the presidential schedule, the committee, congressional schedules. We get our bearings straight on the day. And it's nice to just say hello to our friends to start off the morning. And we'd love to have you join us. We also have a great new announcement now that we have a new website, robertgovea.com. And if you go there, it's going to look something like this, or exactly like this, because this is the website. And you can see when you go there, you can sign up, click here to get instant access to the Mindmap and to all the PDFs and to everything associated with the mind map. So basically, like literally everything that you see on this mind map, go to the website, you can sign up for it, access the PDFs, and just navigate around. And there's a tutorial on how to use all of this. So if it sounds scary, you can head on over there and check it out. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes on the day, let's make sure we're properly nutrified, because we're going to listen to Raskin today. Oh, gosh. All right, here. My friends, let's make sure that we get our field of greens. We all would like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, but how sick are you of all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets? You know, we've all been there, we've all done that, and they don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? It goes bad in like a minute. I don't. Let's talk about Field of Greens, though, instead. Because Field of Greens is a science-backed formula. Very specific fruits and vegetables that you are not going to find in any other product. Try it. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come when you go into your doctor's office at your next checkup. You're just twiddling your thumbs in there. What's going on? I wonder what new on Watching the Watchers. Your doctor is going to come in. You might drop your phone. He's going to shout. You're going to go, "What, doc? Holy moly!" And he's going to say, "I'm sorry, I startled you. You just look amazing. Here's your phone. Now let's get to the rest of your checkup." And so that's going to happen if you go to fieldofgreens.com and you enter code Robert when you check out and load up on all the goodies. It's going to be a great decision. And don't forget to use code Robert when you check out. All right. Now, we've got some whistleblower business to attend to. And so without any further delay, my friends, let's get right to it. The Biden whistleblowers reveal themselves in Congress and to America. And we are going to hit the highlights on some of the opening statements from the people who have been most at the helm in this entire investigation. We'll see what Representative James Comer had to say, along with Jason Smith, the definite accountant of the group, along with Jim Jordan. And they're telling us that there is a massive web, a giant cabal of Biden criminality, lots of people involved, and it was many layers deep. 20 shell companies, but more than that, $8 million in tax problems at the low end. We're going to hear numbers like 17 million and above. And we don't really know the extent of this because many of these entities and these companies and these bank accounts are housed in foreign countries, rather, and they're difficult to investigate from within the United States with the limited power of Congress or even the DOJ. The Bidens were embedded with multiple assets around the world, and now we're getting to the bottom of it. Representative James Comer started off the hearing from the Oversight and Accountability Committee chairman's chair. It's Comer giving us some details about the Biden crime family.
Since assuming our Republican majority in January, the House Oversight Committee has made historically fast progress in our investigation into the Biden family's influence peddling schemes. In just 6 months, we have obtained thousands of pages of financial records. This includes bank records for Biden family associates and suspicious activity reports generated by the Bidens and their associates' high-dollar or foreign business transactions. What these records reveal is astonishing. The Bidens created over 20 shell companies, most of which were created when Joe Biden was vice president.
There you go.
Bank records so far show the Biden family, their business associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and related companies. A lot of this money poured in while Joe Biden was vice president. Despite creating many companies after vice president took office, the Biden family used associates companies to receive millions of dollars from foreign companies in China, Ukraine, and Romania. After foreign companies sent money to business associates companies, the Bidens then received incremental payments over time to various different bank accounts. These complicated financial transactions were used deliberately to conceal the source of funds and total amounts. No normal business operates like this. What were the Bidens selling? Nothing but influence and access to the Biden network. This is an influence peddling scheme to enrich the Bidens. We need to know whether Joe Biden is compromised by these schemes and if our national security is threatened. During our investigation, our committee became aware through whistleblower disclosures provided to Senator Chuck Grassley that the FBI had an unclassified record that details an extortion and bribery scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a Burisma executive. This record was generated by a trusted confidential human source that the FBI has used for over a decade. It memorializes the source's conversations with the Burisma executive who claimed that he paid Joe Biden $5 million in exchange for certain actions. The Burisma executive told the confidential human source that he didn't pay the, quote, big guy, end quote, directly, but that he used so many bank accounts that it would take 10 years to unravel. Now that sounds an awful lot like how the Bidens conduct business, using multiple bank accounts to hide the source and total amount of the money. Today we have two brave and credible IRS whistleblowers who have risked their careers to come forward and provide important testimony. Thank you all for being here today. I know it was not an easy decision. Their testimony about the DOJ, FBI, and IRS's investigation of Hunter Biden confirms the committee's findings, that there's nothing normal about the Biden family's business activity. The White House and Democrats would have Americans believe that our investigation is based on 5 years of conspiracy theories. Right. But we have facts, and new evidence continues to be uncovered by our committee revealing the First family's corruption. The Bidens have put themselves first and Americans last. We will continue to follow the money trail and provide the answers, transparency, and accountability that Americans demand and deserve.
All right, so that is Representative James Comer laying out what they are going to be getting into, and obviously sounds pretty rough. This is Representative Jason Smith. He's over on the House Ways and Means Committee, and they've done a lot of the heavy lifting in the numbers department. And here he is walking us through what they were able to find.
The Ways and Means Committee is charged with ensuring that the tax code is enforced fairly. Clearly, the president only believes in making taxpayers pay their fair share if they don't share his last name. These two courageous whistleblowers provided my committee with devastating testimony showing that the government is not treating all taxpayers equally, and the DOJ and the IRS gave preferential treatment to the president's son during a criminal investigation into his taxes. These individuals in front of us today are credible and set for nearly 15 hours of interviews with both Republicans and Democrats. I personally took part in the interview with Mr. Ziegler. Here's what we learned from the interviewees. The IRS recommended multiple felony charges against Hunter Biden for tax years 2014 through 2019, relating to at least $8.3 million in income from foreign companies, including companies based in China, Romania, and Ukraine. And that is the only amount discovered despite the roadblocks and obstruction their investigation faced. The Department of Justice engaged in a campaign to delay, divulge, and deny that investigation. They delayed investigators for years, leading to the expiration of the statute of limitations for many of the crimes involved. They divulged key investigative details to Biden's attorneys and even the president's transition team. And they denied investigators the ability to authenticate evidence, serve warrants, question witnesses, and bring charges. This led to Hunter Biden's sweetheart agreement, announced 5 years after the investigation started, but mere days before my committee voted to publicly release this testimony. Would Americans in my congressional district or any other congressional district ever receive this same treatment? After raising their concerns internally at the IRS, these whistleblowers were discouraged and demoralized and turned to Congress as a last resort. They bravely reported wrongdoing to us And what have President Biden's allies, including Hunter Biden's lawyers, done? They've responded with a vicious smear campaign to discredit these whistleblowers and discourage others from coming forward, and may have even coordinated with the White House on this effort. This is a disgrace. I urge any IRS employee watching today, if you know of misconduct, please come to the Ways and Means Committee.
Blow that
so
whistle.
we can hold accountable those who are responsible. And let me be clear, there will be zero tolerance for any retaliation against whistleblowers by DOJ and the IRS. The American people expect answers about whether the federal government is treating all taxpayers equally, or if the wealthy and politically connected get special treatment. Our committees are working together to get to the bottom of this abuse of power, and will work tirelessly to do so and to make sure it doesn't ever happen again. Americans should not have to accept two tiers of justice in this country. One if your last name is Biden, and one for everybody else. I want to thank both whistleblowers for coming forward publicly and for your testimony today. I yield to Mr. Jordan.
All right, good statement from Representative Jason Smith. And we're hearing talk about charges all the way going back to the dates of 2014 and after that. And we start hearing about the statute of limitations and the expiration of the time in which you're allowed to bring charges. You know, the law says that we can't delay the bringing of charges. We have to bring them quickly, otherwise evidence might dissipate or witness memory might evaporate. You might lose the physical evidence, the drugs might disappear, or something might get tainted or spoil, or something it just goes bad. So you want to bring these things quickly. Now, if they knew that these charges were ready to go in April of 2020, they could have brought the charges. But as we saw in prior videos, their strategy was to delay when they knew that it was coming around in April, to get it into election season of 2020 so that they could then justify not doing anything again until after the election. So once we're after the election, then they take over the DOJ, then they kick the can down the road for another several years. We're now in 2023, man. So charges that were ripe and ready to go in 2020, which would have covered 2014, we're now 3 years later. So those expired. And that's all by design. That's the point of delaying this. And Jason Smith is calling that out. Now, we're going to talk about the credibility of these witnesses. But one thing is consistent here. They have been consistent. Representative Jim Jordan is pointing this out. And he says, look, you know, the government has been changing their story. These guys have been consistent. We've got emails. We've got corroboration where Gary Shapley was confirming in his emails in writing, saying, this is a weird meeting, just sending you a confirmation email, letting you know that this is what my interpretation was. Let me know if you object to this. No objections back, meaning your confirmation is accurate. Thumbs up. But whose story changes? The whistleblowers stayed the same. They've been very consistent. Merrick Garland, David Weiss, the U.S. Attorney's Office, not so much.
You know whose story hasn't changed? These two guys. Their testimony has been consistent. Throughout, their testimony has been the same. And guess what? 2 days ago, an FBI agent confirmed their testimony. Who are you going to believe? The Justice Department can't get their story straight, changed 3 times in 33 days, or these two guys? The Justice Department that was found to censor Americans just 2 weeks ago from the federal court in Louisiana, the Justice Department that said moms and dads are terrorists, the Justice Department that said if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist, the Justice Department that can't get his story straight are these two guys. 10 years, over a decade of experience for each of them, the go-to guys in international tax evasion cases, the A-team when it comes to investigating these matters. All over the world they've done this, and who've been consistent throughout. I think I'll believe these guys. I think they're the ones telling the truth. And that is fundamentally what this comes down to. So God bless you guys for the work you've done, the courage you have, and for being here today, stepping forward because you care about equal treatment under the law. That's what's at stake, plain and simple.
Amen to that. So those two guys are in front of Congress in the lion's den. We know the Democrats don't play around. This is blood sport to them. They don't care about the truth. They care about electoral victory. These two guys are standing in the way. And so 20 shell companies at the start, 8 million and counting as the Biden crime family carries on. So let's turn our attention over now to Gary Shapley. IRS Special Agent Gary Shapley testifies in front of Congress. The whistleblower exposing the Biden crime family gave a blistering opening statement saying he was directly involved in this inquiry. He was pounding the table multiple times saying, we need to do something about investigating this and bringing actual charges, and that he was retaliated against for doing so. Now, he put together a very long opening written statement, which is available at robertgovea.com on this mind map. You can access it and download the full PDF here. But I wanted to start with his bio, because his bio reveals to us all of his credentials, and boy, does he have a lot of them. For the people saying out there that this is just some irritated IRS agent who just hates Joe Biden, here's his background. The biography for Gary A. Shapley, Jr. They say he graduated upstate New York. After college, Gary decided to volunteer for an organization called AmeriCorps, National Community Civilian Corps. Went to Colorado, volunteered. He returned to complete his college degree, got his accounting and business admin degree, University of Maryland, master's in BA, University of Baltimore, interned at the DOD. Started his career in intelligence community, working at the Inspector General's office at the National Security Agency. Gary began his employment with the IRS Criminal Investigation July 2009. Been doing it a while. Immediately completing 6 months intensive training at Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. After training, Gary was assigned Baltimore POD, was the case agent on 2 federal criminal trials, one in Baltimore, one in DC. Gary quickly took on collateral duties, becoming a use of force instructor and a firearms instructor for the Washington, D.C. field office. Gary was then detailed to the Department of Justice Tax Division. He spent 5 years there. There, he investigated foreign financial institutions. As part of the Swiss bank program, he investigated Credit Suisse, HSBC, and several high net worth individuals with complex international financial assets. Gary was assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force, working as a task force officer at both the FBI Washington field office and then the FBI Baltimore field office. Gary was promoted to a supervisory special agent, 2018, back in Baltimore. Then he was selected to assist in creating a new international organization. Hey, Gary, can you help us create this? What do we want to call it? The Joint Chiefs of Global Tax Enforcement, called the J5. Primary goal was to increase collaborative efforts with international and on financial crimes with Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, and the UK. Why don't you work on this international tax crimes team? That's how good you are. Gary was then promoted to the supervisory special agent of the specialty group called the International Tax and Financial Crimes Group, leading to a group of 12 elite special agents who are subject matter experts in complex international tax and other related financial crimes. Gary was detailed as the special agent in charge of the New York field office all the way through September 2021. So this guy's just been crushing it in this role. Following that detail, Gary competed for and was selected to be the assistant special agent in charge of the Chicago field office from December 21 to November 22. Gary is currently in that role of the supervisory special agent for the ITFC. So, yeah, you can see what a total loser this guy, yeah. Totally untrustworthy. No credentials, no credibility at all. Our U.S. government just had him in some of the highest positions, investigating some of the more serious crimes, working with foreign nations. That's how credible he was. Do you know anybody who could work with like 5 foreign countries on international tax crimes? They're like, oh, I know, Gary. Gary Shapley. Oh, gosh, that's a great idea. Yeah, he can lead the team. Go get him. But now the Democrats will take a look at this guy with all these credentials, and they'll say, this guy's just a Trumper. Rah. This is all a double standard going after Hunty. All right, so with that backdrop and with the knowledge that we can go and read his full opening statement, you can see this is Gary Shapley's 10 pages of statements, and he talks about U.S. Attorney Wolf. He talks about what his involvement is, a little bit more history. He's recovered $3.5 billion for the U.S. taxpayer. Who's at the door? All right, hang on a second. Let me see if it's the feds. If it's the feds, if I'm not back in 2 minutes, it's the feds. All right, it's not the feds. It's not the feds. We're back. Wasn't the feds. No, we're still here. I thought it might have been the DOJ, but it wasn't the DOJ. Whew! It was just a package. That's all. Whew! A little close call there. All right, so $3.5 billion for the taxpayer, man. $3.5 billion. And we're grateful for that. I mean, we don't want our taxpayer dollars. Well, actually, all of that, I guess, will probably just go over to Ukraine. So whatever. But anyway, so he's done a lot of work. Now, this is his opening statement, and he went into detail here. And so I want to spend a little time on this to make sure he gets the floor, because this is straight from the man's mouth. This guy worked on the case directly. And you can see it's a full house, man. There's a lot of people in there today, and a lot of photographers, a lot of news people. Everybody is bracing for impact, because this is the opening of Pandora's box. Right now we've got witnesses. If we see enough names and evidence and enough pressure here, we start to ask ourselves, what is Congress going to do? And Kevin McCarthy has said that if there is evidence of lying, he's going to open up an impeachment inquiry, literally for Merrick Garland. And that might be something that starts slow, but then comes to a big, beautiful crescendo, let's say middle of the year, next year, when it really matters. So this is Gary Shapley, Biden crime family whistleblower in Congress, heroically testifying about what he knows.
Thank you for inviting me to testify here today. I want to thank every member and staffer on both sides of the aisle who work for the work you do to represent your constituents and hold government accountable. My name is Gary Shapley. I've worked as a special agent for IRS criminal investigation for 14 years. I have risen to become a senior leader in the organization and currently supervise 12 elite agents in the International Tax and Financial Crimes Group. I have worked directly with United States attorneys in multiple districts and have supervised or investigated cases in more than a dozen United States attorneys' offices across the country.
Very reliable.
I have led, planned, or executed undercover operations or search warrants in more than a dozen countries. I have investigated and managed some of the largest cases in the history of the agency, recovering more than $3.5 billion for the United States taxpayer. In this country, we believe in the rule of law, and that applies to everyone. There should not be a two-track justice system depending on who you are and who you're connected to. Yet, in this case, there was. Based on my experience, I'm here to tell you that the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office and Department of Justice handling the Hunter Biden tax investigation was very different from any other case in my 14 years at the IRS.
All right, so 14 years, what he was working on here was an aberration. One of these things just doesn't belong here. The Hunter Biden investigation.
At every stage, decisions were made that benefited the subject of this investigation. For example, prosecutors concealed contents of Hunter Biden's laptop from investigators. DOJ slow-walked steps to include interviews, serving document requests, and executing search warrants. Warrants that were ready as early as April of 2020, but were delayed until after the November 2020 election and never pursued.
Warrants that were ready April 2020.
And executing search warrants. Warrants that were ready as early as April of 2020, but were delayed until after the November 2020 election and never pursued.
Because they didn't want the bad publicity of Biden getting his house raided. You know who they're okay with having their house raided? Donald Trump. The DOJ will fast track the raid of a former president, but not of a former vice president. They'll protect Joe Biden as a presidential candidate, but they'll harm Donald Trump as a presidential candidate. And their justification for not bringing the charges in April of 2020 or not allowing the warrant to be executed was that it's bad imagery. And then once it got delayed far enough, they said it's too close to the election. And then after the election, they said it's too close after the contested election. And then after Joe Biden was sworn in, then they were in control. And then everything got slow rolled from there.
Investigators were not allowed to follow up on WhatsApp messages from Hunter Biden's Apple iCloud backup, where he suggested he was sitting next to his father. Assistant United States Attorney Leslie Wolf cited the optics of executing a search warrant at President Biden's residence as a deciding factor for not allowing it, even though she agreed that probable cause existed. Prosecutors instructed investigators not to ask about the big guy or dad when conducting interviews.
Don't ask about it.
The Biden transition team was tipped off about interviews the night before the investigation went overt. A fact my FBI counterpart confirmed to this committee in recent testimony, where the result was that only one witness spoke to investigators that day. These are just some of the examples of how our investigation was stymied. I'm not here to support partisan agendas on either side. I'm here because our tax system relies on the American people having confidence it is administered fairly and equally for everyone, regardless of your last name or political connections. If the handling of this case was inappropriate, it doesn't matter whether it happened under a Republican or Democrat administration. Whether you agree with my concerns about the unethical slow walking and preferential treatment in this case, you can be sure that my testimony is true and correct to the best of my ability. Unfortunately, the way this has already been handled by some members and the media has done immeasurable damage to future would-be whistleblowers. I have been attacked as incompetent and falsely accused of being a liar, a leaker, or both, all by people who know nothing about me or the facts of this case. Some question if I should even be called a whistleblower.
Despite all of those credentials, all of that is meaningless to them. Just throw it right in the garbage, whatever.
Suggesting that my disclosures are not legally protected merely because they don't like what I'm saying. We've seen this shoe on the other foot before, and some Republicans have made the same error, so there's plenty of blame for both sides. The cycle of villainizing or canonizing government employees who report what they believe is wrongdoing has to stop. When I first started noticing deviations from the normal investigative process around June 2020, I did not run to Congress to air grievances. Instead, I documented my concerns and made internal protected disclosures to my chain of command.
June 2020.
I tried to give the prosecutors the benefit of the doubt for a very long time. After our investigation had largely concluded by the end of 2021, the IRS recommended charging Hunter Biden with multiple felonies and several misdemeanors for the tax years of 2014 through 2019.
After the election,
the Delaware Assistant United States Attorneys and Tax Division trial attorneys supported charging the felonies and misdemeanors listed in Exhibit 2 of my interview transcripts on page 44 and 45, which were officially referred to the Department of Justice Tax Division in February of 2022. This case was presented to the Washington, D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office in or around March 2022. In April 2022, in a hearing, Attorney General Garland was asked how the American people could be confident the administration was conducting a serious investigation into the president's own son. Attorney General Garland responded by saying, because we put the investigation in the hands of a Trump appointee. He led Congress to believe the case was insulated from improper political influence because all decisions were being made exclusively by Delaware United States Attorney David Weiss, but that was not true. The Justice Department allowed the president's political appointees to weigh in on whether to charge the president's son. After United States Attorney for D.C., Matthew Graves, appointed by President Biden, refused to bring charges in March 2022, I watched United States Attorney Weiss tell a room full of senior FBI and IRS senior leaders on October 7, 2022, that he was not the deciding person on whether charges were filed. That was my red line.
It's brutal. So these guys are just shattering the entire timeline. We've got David Weiss going to Matthew Graves in Washington, D.C. in March being rejected, Merrick Garland comes after the fact, goes in front of America, says David Weiss doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to go to Matthew Graves to get permission. He doesn't have to go to California to get permission from that attorney because he's been empowered to do whatever he wants. There's arm's length distance there. That's why they keep saying Trump appointed lawyer, Trump appointed lawyer. But the Trump appointed lawyer has to go through a Biden appointed lawyer to get permission, to get his little slip signed. And every time he goes to ask for permission, he gets rejected. Merrick Garland didn't tell us about that little mechanical component. He said that's not true at all, that David Weiss can do whatever he wants because Merrick Garland lied to us.
I had already seen a pattern of preferential treatment and obstruction. Now United States Weiss was admitting that what the American people believed based on the Attorney General's sworn statement was false. I can no longer stay silent. In November of 2022, the statute of limitations was set to expire for the 2014 and 2015 charges in D.C., which included the 2014 felonies for the attempt to evade or defeat tax and fraud or false statement regarding bereavement income earned by Hunter Biden in those years. The statute of limitations had been extended through a tolling agreement with Hunter Biden's defense counsel, and they were willing to extend it past November 2022. Weiss allowed those to expire.
Wow. Wow. Statute of limitations are not things that the government allows to expire. Talk to your local prosecutor about this and see if they agree. They will agree. If you have a DUI case and for some reason the DUI gets dismissed while they're retesting blood results, or there's some difficulty with an officer's schedule or whatever it is, they dismiss it, they're going to mark their calendar with a big red flag that says you better refile these charges before the statute of limitation expires, or else you're going to lose the opportunity to do that. And for the government, missing a statute of limitations is almost malpractice. I mean, if you were a new attorney and you missed a statute of limitations, you got lazy. And I've won cases this way, by the way. The government got bad with their calendaring. They were 2-3 days off after the 365-day limit. Case dismissed. That is a huge problem for the government. It's like missing the most important meeting. And you can file new charges at day 364 if it's a 365-day limit. So the fact that they had a tolling agreement, so they didn't just sort of allow a difficult investigation to move forward and the SOLs, the statute of limitations, to just naturally expire. They had an agreement with Hunter's lawyers to extend the statute of limitations, and they still let it expire because it's all just by design. They just want these things to go away. And the pressure coming down to bear upon Weiss's office must have been massive because they allowed an agreed upon extension to expire. The fact that they agreed to an extension rather than bringing charges is amazing. But then they just let it expire, all by design.
Prosecutors presented the 2017, 2018, and 2019 criminal tax charges to the Central District of California around September of 2022, only after President Biden's nominee, Martin Estrada, was confirmed. In January of this year, I learned Estrada had declined to bring the charges. For all intents and purposes, the case was dead with the exception of one gun charge that could be brought in Delaware. And yet, when Senator Chuck Grassley asked Attorney General Garland about the case in March 2023, Garland testified, the United States Attorney has been advised he has full authority to make those referrals you're talking about or to bring cases in other districts if he needs to do that. He has been advised that he should get anything he needs. After the October 7 red line meeting, there was no way to reconcile United States Attorney Weiss's statement, his office's actions with Attorney General Garland's public testimony. I am 100% certain of what Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office did in seeking approval from political appointees in D.C. and California. The New York Times reported that it has independently confirmed the charges being presented and declined in California. Plenty of other witnesses are familiar with these facts, in addition to those who witnessed U.S. Attorney Weiss's private admission. I encourage them to step forward and tell the truth about what happened and what they heard. Let me be clear, although these facts contradict Attorney General Garland's testimony and raise serious questions for you to investigate, I have never claimed to have evidence that Attorney General Garland knowingly lied to Congress. Whether Attorney General Garland knew his testimony was false is for you and the Inspector Generals to determine, not me. The same is true for United States Attorney Weiss's 3 letters to Congress since June 2023. It is for others to investigate and determine whether those letters contain knowingly false statements. However, it's clear that United States Attorney Weiss's story to the American public has evolved. He's gone from unequivocally echoing Attorney General Garland to, just 1 month later, corroborating the disclosures we made about limits on his authority. Weiss first said he can charge anywhere, and then admitted he's geographically limited. To go beyond those limits, Weiss later admitted he had to partner or get special authority. Garland said Weiss has authority. United States Attorney Weiss.
You don't have to partner. You either have the authority or don't. If he has to go get permission from another U.S. attorney that was appointed by Joe Biden, and that attorney is going to Merrick Garland, then there really is no arm's length distance there at all. It's as though Merrick Garland has his thumb directly on the investigation. It's just going through a circuitous route. It's going from Garland to Graves to Weiss back in Delaware.
Said he's been assured he would get authority. If he never requested or denied special authority from Attorney General Garland, as he told us on October 7, the American public deserves to hear why he allowed 2014 and 2015 D.C. charges to expire. No number of carefully worded denials or evolving half-truths can overshadow this stark fact. United States Attorney Weiss and Attorney General Garland will each be sitting before these committees one day. They will have to admit that despite all their obfuscation, the absolute fact is that this case was presented to 2 presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California.
Brutal.
That no charges were brought in those districts tells you everything that you need to know.
Yeah, they said no.
I don't claim to be privy to United States Attorney Weiss or Attorney General Garland's communications, but United States Attorney Weiss told us that he was not the deciding person, that he had requested and was denied special authority after D.C. declined charges, and that if California declines, he will have to request special authorities again. I understood the gravity of those admissions. Whether full responsibility lies with United States Attorney Weiss or Attorney General Garland is for Congress, the Inspector Generals, and ultimately the public to decide. When I decided after October 7th to come forward and began researching whistleblower attorneys, I wanted to abide by the law in every way as I navigated the complex taxpayer privacy and grand jury secrecy statutes. I carefully followed the whistleblower process to the letter with the advice of counsel at every step. I am fortunate to be represented by Mark Lytle, a federal prosecutor for 25 years, including 5 years with the Department of Justice Tax Division. I'm also grateful for Empower Oversight, a nonprofit whistleblower group whose president, Tristan Levitt, was previously nominated by President Biden to the Merit Systems Protection Board and unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate. While some have tried to paint me with a partisan brush because this charitable organization employs some former staffers to GOP members on Capitol Hill, their expertise developed working for the patron saint and whistleblower, Senator Chuck Grassley, has been invaluable. Meanwhile, the Biden family attorneys appear to be representing Hunter Biden, President Biden, and the Department of Justice, and they are not working for free. It has been reported in public sources that there is a large fund paying for legal fees for Biden family attorneys. The source of those funds is unknown. They have virtually unlimited resources to pursue their agenda, while my motives are questioned.
They control the government. They control the whole federal government, including the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, the Secret Service that can't even find a dime bag of Hunter's cocaine. And they've got dark money coming over from Hollywood celebrity lawyers, and Hunter's getting Lord knows what for his COVID mucus paintings. And it's Gary Shapley and his legal team and us.
And simply for finding competent representation from a small nonprofit that helps whistleblowers. Groups such as Empower Oversight and Whistleblower Aid are the only path to ensure whistleblowers like me are heard and receive competent advice. My intention was not to be your sole source of information, and I implore you to take the necessary steps to obtain as much evidence as possible from as many sources as possible to be able to fully inform your conclusions. I'm confident that after you have done that, both sides will find serious issues with the Hunter Biden investigation that closely align with my testimony. No matter your party, I am not your opposition. I am here with information for you to examine, investigate, and determine whether more action is warranted on your part. I am on your team, whether we agree on every politically sensitive issue or not. There is no benefit for me blowing the whistle on this case, absolutely none. I have no book deal, and the only money that goes into my bank account every 2 weeks is from my employment for the federal government.
He should have been the president's son. Then he could have gotten $80,000 a year from fake gas companies.
I am still a supervisor leading a group of 12 fantastic agents working complex international investigations. Unfortunately, to this day, my immediate supervisors are retaliating against me for making protected disclosures. Even last fall, Biden family attorneys attacked investigators in the pages of the Washington Post and threatened the prosecutors with career suicide if they brought charges against the president's son. Then one of the Biden family attorneys sends to the press a 10-page error-filled letter. It attacked me with innuendo, false statements, and baseless speculation that I had leaked information to the Washington Post. These statements by Biden family attorneys are false. In conclusion,
they're threatening these guys. They're saying that they are breaking the law, that what they're doing is outside of the confines of whistleblower protections, that they're actually breaching privacy laws and Hunter Biden is a victim, and that they should maybe be prosecuted. We've seen the same pattern. They're going after James Comer, saying, do you have the location and whereabouts of Gal Luft? Maybe you're conspiring with a foreign agent. Same thing, because they control everything. They control all the levers of power. And if anybody pops up, they're going to crack them back down. And this is a warning to anybody else who might speak. You might be next.
American people for whom this body works, I implore you to look at the facts, not agenda-laced statements from either side of the aisle. I am the average American citizen who worries about how I will send my kids to college and if I'll ever have enough money to retire, just like most people watching this today. I am the first person in my family to go to college. It was not an Ivy League school. And I don't have a network of rich and powerful friends to help me weather the storms of retaliation and character assassination. I am putting myself at risk for the American people who support me and for those who do not. At the end of the day, I'm just a small-town kid from Norwich, New York, who worked hard to get where I am and will never compromise my integrity. I will never forget who I am, where I come from, or all the people in my life who have made me who I am today. Thank you all for your time.
All right, Gary Shapley, prayers for Gary Shapley and his family for the strength to persevere, because the truth has consequences. We know the Democrats and the people who are running this country at this current status time in the Biden administration recoil from it. And so the pressure coming down to bear upon them will be extremely high. We'll, of course, continue to follow and support them as they continue to bring us the truth. So let's continue on. We have another whistleblower as well. Mr. X revealed. Until today, we did not know his identity, but he is a Biden whistleblower who has come out saying he was a part of the investigatory team, and he's got the inside scoop on how this whole thing was covered up. His name, revealed in Congress, is Mr. Joseph Ziegler, IRS Special Agent, worked closely with Mr. Gary Shapley on the investigative team that was looking into the Biden crime family. And so he published an opening statement. It is about 10 pages long, and he's going to give us a short explanation in his opening testimony. But here's a little bit more about him. He says, I come forward at your invitation. I previously came forward below. I already talked about myself as Whistleblower X. 13-year special agent with the IRS, says I've got a duty to bring to the public the things that he is going to share with us today. And so we'll listen to him, Mr. X, Joseph Ziegler, testifying in front of Congress, exposing the Biden crime family.
and members of the committee. Today, I sit here before you not as a hero or a victim, but as a whistleblower compelled to disclose the truth. That said, in coming forward, I believe I'm risking my career, my reputation, and my casework outside of the investigation we are here to discuss. I ultimately made the decision to come forward after what I believe were multiple attempts at blowing the whistle in the Internal Revenue Service, at the Internal Revenue Service. No one should be above the law, regardless of your political affiliation. I humbly view my role here today as providing the facts as I best understood them, and to let Congress and the administration and the public consider those facts and determine the best path forward. I recognize why I was present at the start of this investigation and was closely involved with the investigation for roughly 5 years. I'm just a part of the story. Others, including my colleague and Supervisor Gary Shapley, who is here with me today, have their own views and understandings of what took place during this investigation. I've been an agent with the IRS since 2010. In 2007, I received my undergraduate degree from Ohio University, my MBA from John Carroll University. Prior to starting my career at the IRS, I worked at Ernst & Young as an external auditor. Throughout my career with the IRS, I have worked a variety of successful criminal tax and money laundering investigations. In 2018, I transitioned to being a part of the International Tax and Financial Crimes Group out of the Washington, D.C. field office. I was the lead IRS case agent on the Hunter Biden investigation. I've recently discovered that people are saying that I must be more credible because I'm a Democrat who happens to be married to a man. I'm no more credible than this man sitting next to me due to my sexual orientation or my political beliefs. The truth is, my credibility comes today from my job experience with the IRS and my intimate knowledge of the agency's standard and procedures. I was raised and have always strived to do what is right. Although I do have my supporters, others have said that I am a traitor to the Democratic Party and that I'm causing more division in our society.
Wow.
I implore you to...
Wow, for coming out, he's getting attacked. A gay Democrat is being attacked by Democrats for blowing the whistle.
Consider that if you were in my position with the facts as I have stated them, ask yourself if you would be doing the exact same thing. I hope that I am an example to other LGBTQ people out there who are questioning doing the right thing at the potential cost of themselves and others.
Yes, indeed.
We should always do the right thing, no matter how painful the process might be. I kind of equate this to the experience and feelings I encountered when coming out. It was honestly one of the hardest things I ever had to go through.
Wow.
I contemplated scenarios that would have been highly regrettable, but I did what is right, and I'm sitting here in front of you today. I would first like to take a minute to thank some people for their unfettered help and support. First off, God, for giving me the strength and courage to get through this process. My husband, who has been my rock, has put up with me, my stress, and has had to deal with his personal information being out there.
Shout out to
my
Mr.
attorney,
Ziegler.
Dean REEE-act, who has agreed to represent me through this matter pro bono, and someone who has provided me so much help and guidance.
Shout out.
My colleagues from the Hunter Biden investigation. The work that was done on this case is tremendous, but seems to be overshadowed by what is happening here today. And I just want to say to the investigative team that I am thankful for having worked with you. I also want to thank my family and friends back home in Northeast Ohio and Georgia. I don't live in the D.C. area. I had to fly here and have had to pay out of pocket for all my travel-related expenses in being a whistleblower. On that note, I would like to make another statement that I have not accepted a single payment from anyone for being a whistleblower. First, Mr. Chairman, while I have my written statement as well as my testimony before the Ways and Means Committee, I would like to touch on briefly 7 specific matters. First, in a recent letter to Congress, Mr. Weiss stated that he had been granted ultimate authority over this matter, but then later stated in the same letter that his charging authority is geographically limited and that he would need a President Biden-appointed U.S. attorney to partner with him in charging the case.
Right.
Mr. Weiss stated that he was making all decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of the prosecution consistent with federal law, the principles of federal prosecution, and departmental regulations. In the Criminal Tax Manual, Chapter 10, found on the DOJ website, Tax Division policy states that cases involving individuals who fail to file tax returns or pay a tax but who also commit acts of evasion or obstruction should be charged as felonies to avoid inequitable treatment. In early August of 2022, federal prosecutors from the Department of Justice Tax Division drafted a 99-page memorandum. In so, they were recommending for approval felony and misdemeanor charges for the 2017, 18, and 19 tax years.
That didn't happen, though.
That did not happen here, and I am not sure why.
Well, we know why, because it's the Biden people who are in charge of all of this. He's got a lot of the facts and evidence. It's pretty obvious to him. He's sitting there. He's like, I got bookshelves of binders full of criminal documents. But all of his superiors say, we don't care about any of that. Just leave them right there on the bookshelf. They're not going anywhere.
And as the special agent on this case, I thought the felony charges were well supported. When considering the elements of felony tax case, under the criminal code, there are two key considerations: willfulness and tax due and owing. In the criminal context, willfulness is defined as voluntary, intentional violation of a known legal duty. The tax loss is the monetary loss to the government. In early 2020, Hunter Biden's unfiled and delinquent tax returns were being prepared, which included his 2018 tax return. During the 2020 time period, by Hunter Biden's own account, he was sober, newly married, and writing his memoir. Hunter Biden's accountants requested that he sign a representation letter stating that all the deductions were for business purposes and were being reported appropriately. Statements Hunter Biden made in his book completely contradicted what he was deducting as business deductions on his 2018 return.
All right, so he continues on. Now, he gets into some of the details, and I will go and see what Byron Donalds digs into with him about Leslie Wolf, but very heroic testimony from Mr. Ziegler. He is there testifying against all of his, sounds like colleagues. He's got a good support network, but a lot of other people are coming down upon him with a lot of pressure, angry that he is speaking out, but he's not stopping. He's going to be showing up with CBS. Apparently, they've got an exclusive interview coming out. Here's what he said there.
Did you uncover evidence that President Biden financially benefited from his son's deals?
Biden.
I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
Why is that?
Anytime we potentially wanted to go down the road of asking questions related to the president, it was, that's going to take too much approvals. We can't ask those questions. And I mean, it created an environment that was very hard to deal with.
It's a politically sensitive case. Wouldn't it require additional approvals?
Yes, I do understand that aspect, but it would be like, well, let's think about it. Let's put that on the back burner.
It's not that important. We've got other things to worry about, and we'll get to it at some point. And so we're asking ourselves, who is the person who's making those decisions? Where is the choke point? Who is the final approval, the manager of the Hunter Biden investigation? Well, we know that we've got the IRS. These are investigative agents that are investigating tax crimes. We've got the FBI investigating other crimes, or let's say not investigating other crimes, but they're supposed to be investigating laptop crimes, gun crimes, drug crimes, prostitution crimes, all the other things that they didn't really look into with Hunter. But they are just going around and gathering up the evidence and determining whether they think there's enough probable cause to move this whole thing forward. But they've also got to turn it into a prosecutor, somebody at the DOJ, somebody who will ultimately review it and say, I'm a lawyer, you're not a lawyer. I know you're a special agent, whatever, but I got to take this case and present it in front of a grand jury, and I've got to sign with my law license that there is probable cause here and go make the arguments and stand behind it. So it goes to a choke point. There's somebody at the top of this whole chain that can cut it all off. Who is that person? We think it's Leslie Wolf at the DOJ. And Byron Donalds digs in on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the witnesses, thank you for being here today. I want to get right to it because we have a lot to cover. Mr. Ziegler, you are the agent that opened up this investigation. From your transcript, page 17, what it says is that you were investigating a social media company, and through the process of that investigation, you found out that Hunter Biden was paying potentially 4 prostitutes in a potential prostitution ring. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. You also say that in the beginning phases of that investigation, reviewing bank reports, that there was evidence that he was living lavishly through his corporate bank account. Is that correct? And when I say him, I mean Hunter Biden. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Question for you.
Just pausing on this. A lot of people on the left will say, well, this is irrelevant. This has nothing to do with anything. It's Hunter Biden just going around and, lounging with prostitutes, doing crack, the same types of crimes that Joe Biden, Hunty's daddy, the same types of crimes that he put tons of people in prison for as he drafted the crime bills of the 80s and 90s. Tons of people, including the black community, by the way, had all sorts of crack cocaine problems. Joe Biden said, no breaks on this, first offense, 5-year mandatory minimums, and so on and so forth. So that is allowed to happen. And here is Donalds.
And also for Mr. Shapley. Is it a clear line of potential investigation if somebody is charging up massive living expenses through a corporate account and not doing that through their own personal accounts and not accounting for that properly on their income tax returns? Is that the basis of a criminal investigation?
So all of Hunter's activities, all of that drug addict, prostitution activity was being funded through his law firm and through different entities, different shell companies. But those were, I hate to say the word, but the fruits of his labor, right? That's what he was indulging in. Other people might, invest in property or, start a family or build a business or do other things as they earn income from their legitimate activities. Hunter wasn't doing that at all. He was making money hand over fist. He was working for Burisma, and he was on their board getting $80,000 a month for basically doing nothing, sending text messages, organizing different liaisons, and doing deals. That's it. And that money was gained as a result of the influence of Hunter. Okay, in other words, this is not Hunter who worked a very difficult construction job, put in an honest day's work, went out and indulged in something that maybe some of us disagree with, right? One of those things. That's not this at all. What we see on the laptop is the byproduct of him selling out America, of the illegal quid pro quos. And so when we talk about the laptop, we talk about Hunter's criminality, it's just the symbol. It's the byproduct. It's the excrement of his criminality. And that criminality implicates Joe Biden. So who is impeding that process?
Generally speaking, that would definitely be factors that would spur a criminal investigation, yes.
Okay. Let me answer this question. Let me answer this question real quick. So there was reference to the WhatsApp text message referring to, and everybody knows it now, hey, I'm sitting here with my dad, tell the chairman to give me my money because we remember and we're not going to forget because we're the Bidens and we have all these connections, yada, yada, yada. We all know that text message
My
now.
dad's sitting right here.
Mr. Ziegler, on page 105 of your testimony, page 105, gentlemen, you state, I know we wanted to get location data because I went to the prosecutors with this and they again came back at me with, well, how do we know that? He could just be lying and claiming that dad, Joe Biden now, that dad was there and dad was not there. Were you allowed to get location data dealing with the WhatsApp text message?
So from my memory of it and from the notes that were taken, I never obtained location data regarding that message. Did
Miss Wolf, the AUSA in Delaware, did she say, oh wow, look at this text message, let's figure out the location data and see where Hunter Biden was when he sent said message? Was she like excited about this as a prosecutor?
No.
So, I mean, when I asked her about the location data, in her response right here, it was her responding with, well, how do we know that? It wasn't yeah, let's try and figure that out. It was like, well, how do we know that?
Are you sure?
Well, did she read the text message? Because if I read that text message as a prosecutor, I'm saying, wait a minute, dad is sitting next to him and dad happens to be the now president, then vice president of the United States.
You're like
Should we
jackpot.
find out where Hunter was when he sent said text message? I mean, I'm not a prosecutor, I'm a finance guy, but that just seemed like common sense to me.
No, you
Yeah,
got
and I
it,
think
Byron.
with
You got
the
it.
previous email that was referenced, 10 held by H for the big guy.
That one.
Now that you have those two things kind of correlating with each other, as a normal process or procedure that we would go through, you would want to figure out, is that information truthful in that
Curious.
WhatsApp message?
I totally agree with you, Mr. Ziegler, which is why I think it is the view of members on this committee, and frankly, a lot of Americans at this point,
That's true.
that there are elements at the Department of Justice who did not want this information out, who did not want to go down the line of actually going through the evidence gathering process to see the depths to which this international pay-for-play scheme that was actually happening around Joe Biden, going through Hunter Biden, and all the money that the Biden family was incurring. That's not a question for you, that's just a statement from me. Last question, through your investigation, how much money did you uncover was coming from Ukraine, Romania, and China?
Ukraine, Romania, and China.
If you hold on 1 second, let me reference the
Yeah, get those spreadsheets out, baby.
17.3 million
Woo!
approximately.
Okay, so 17.3 million through your investigation, and you and Mr.
That's a lot of
Shapley, you
super
are the
chats,
guys
man.
that investigate criminal tax evasion on an international scale. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, question for the chairman. Mr. Chairman, through the investigation of the Oversight Committee, about how much money have we seen come from Ukraine, Romania, and China?
Ukraine?
Over 10 million.
Okay, so we have two separate investigations.
Wow.
One done by the investigative branch of the IRS that is charged with doing these types of investigations. These are the people you want doing them, and an independent investigation by the Oversight Committee. And we're coming up with the same amount of money, give or take a couple million, going through the same person in Hunter Biden. And his investigation is slow walked. And we're supposed to sit here and think that Joe Biden knows nothing? I think, for the record, Mr. Chairman, that the relevant committee needs to have questions for Leslie Wolf,
Yes.
the AUSA of Delaware,
Yes.
for David Weiss, the Attorney General of Delaware, for Lisa Monaco, who is the Deputy Attorney General, and for Merrick Garland himself, the Attorney General of the United States. Because if this action is allowed to occur, and investigations are slow
Bring
walked
him in.
with this level of detail, this ain't Donald Trump, y'all. These are facts. I yield.
All right, so we got the litany. Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, number 2. We got David Weiss, the actual guy in charge of the Hunty investigation, and of course, Leslie Wolf, probably the hatchet woman, the one who actually goes out and does all of the dirty work, because David Weiss is a little bit in the crosshairs, and so all of it gets deviated out. And boy, $17 million from Ukraine and all of the other countries out there. Very interesting. Now Joe Biden's giving them billions. Very interesting relationship that's happening. But Mr. Joseph Ziegler, revealed as the IRS Special Agent, known as Mr. X, blowing the whistle on the Biden crime family. We're very excited to hear more from him, to see what else he's got to say. This makes two Biden crime family whistleblowers corroborating what each other has seen and heard. And of course, my friends, we're going to continue to cover this. Thank you for liking this video, and thank you for subscribing as we cover this. It's not going to stop. I think we're just getting started. There will be a lot more to follow, and we look forward to seeing you as we do. All right, and so, my friends, let's wrap it up now. Let's turn our attention over to the Democrats, because we want to hear from them. What do they say? The Democrats are now complaining about poor Hunty. He's the victim of a two-tiered system of justice. Those Republicans are going a little too hard at him, and they say that there's not even evidence of any crimes here. Jamie Raskin is going to tell us there's just not much there. Much ado about nothing. It's all a political hatchet job. But something interesting happened in Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene brought in some evidence that we're not going to show here because it is not family friendly, but it's reality. And so we have it all redacted and blacked out. But she did bring in some interesting photos to show some of the evidence, maybe for Raskin to consider. But other Democrats like Dan Goldman are saying, no, this is really unfair for Hunter. This is a two-tiered system, and poor Hunter is the victim of the Republicans. And AOC says, oh yeah? well, how about we investigate you people? You're investigating us, we'll investigate you. And we're all scratching our heads here saying, what are you going to do? Raid Trump's house again? Or put the J6ers in jail even harder? All right. And then Raskin gets into it with the whistleblowers, and he comes to the very Raskin-y conclusion that it's all just confusion. So we'll start off with Mr. Raskin, and a reminder that he's got cancer. So that's why he's wearing this little thing on his head. But he is going to tell us there's just simply no evidence. Fortunately, Marjorie Taylor Greene came with receipts.
There is no evidence that Hunter Biden has received
Zero.
any kind of official favoritism in this prosecution for being Joe Biden's son. On the contrary, there are more than 10 million Americans who have filed taxes but failed to pay them, the exact crime Hunter Biden is pleading guilty to. The vast majority of these cases are resolved administratively or through civil settlement. Indeed, every year the IRS and DOJ obtain convictions and sentences in fewer than 700 cases for tax crimes of any kind, a minuscule percentage.
So there's really nothing here. This all should have been resolved and settled, and all of the records, all of the banking transactions, all of the different shell companies are all irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. There's just no evidence of it. But Marjorie Taylor Greene came in and she brought a bunch of evidence. She brought a bunch of boards with her that she showed up with. And in many of these boards, poster boards, there were business records, Wells Fargo transactions, and other text messages and other documents. But she posted one up here, baby, and it caused all of the producers all around this entire country, except the liberal networks like MSNBC, which weren't covering this at all, to all hit the panic button. But you see here it says Hunter recorded multiple S-tapes with a prostitute that he had paid for out of his law firm's bank account. Now, that seems not like a legitimate business expense. Pretty sure that's not. This is not tax advice, but pretty sure that's not a legitimate law firm business expense. At least not when I had a law firm. That's not what we did at our law firm. I don't know what kind of law Hunter's practicing, but not right. You can't write that off, all right? As far as I know. So is the FBI investigating that, or is the IRS investigating that? I don't know. But when Marjorie dug this one up, it caused a little bit of panic over on the news networks. And so let me make sure that I've got the right clip here, because they got a little nervous. Yeah, here it is.
5 seconds.
Here was Fox News. So if they don't actually show it, but Fox, you can see.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
when they cut this
Mr.
out.
Shapley, you started
So as soon as she held it up, they
Hunter
cut it
Biden,
out.
codename
And then they just
Sportsman,
cut to a
which
freeze frame
opened
here.
in November of 2018.
So then she's explaining it.
It was
They
an
cut it to a
offshoot of
freeze
an
frame.
investigation the IRS was conducting
Yeah, she
into
showed
a
it all
foreign-based
uncensored, okay?
amateur
The whole thing's
online
uncensored. So
pornography
if you want to go
platform.
check it out, you certainly can.
This
But
is
she's holding it up
evidence,
now, and so Fox cuts it out.
of Hunter Biden
And then they just
making
cut back over to this
excuse
guy.
me, this is my time.
And you can hear the panic in the voices,
Should we be
right? They're just nervous as can be. They don't want, the Democrats do not want that to come in. Can we get rid of that?
He can have it if he wants to yield.
Can we
some to
get rid of that?
Ocasio-Cortez.
Here's
When she
Comer.
goes, she can have it. We'll make it right.
Here's Comer at the end there. There's Comer. All right, he's got that little smirk. He knows exactly what has happened there.
She can have it.
And so
We'll make it
we've
right.
got Comer and others, and Marjorie's grinning on the whole thing. It was a very,
Some
very
that
funny thing that happened. So all on the floor of Congress. Now, our YouTube censors get very nervous about that, and I think other people may have gotten in trouble about that. And I think that it hit everybody by surprise. So I don't know what YouTube is doing, so just be cautious about it, but it is out there. And some people were very upset about this. This is that Harry Sisson guy who is on Twitter. He says, what the F? He says Marjorie Taylor Greene just showed non-consensual nude images of Hunter Biden on the House floor. And they are nude indeed. There's a little bit of a bar over I don't know what it was, you know, I didn't spend too much time looking at it, but a little think over a little wee or something like that. But he says this is disgusting, totally unacceptable. And he's unhappy about that. And I think she showed it to make a point that there's a lot of evidence here and it just has not been investigated. So We know that that was one line of argument during the testimony today. But Dan Goldman says this whole thing is completely unfair. Hunter Biden is the victim. The DOJ is being weaponized against him, not the Republicans.
I think that last point, John, is the exact correct one, which is that the House Republicans and with Donald Trump's leadership have been trying to undermine the institutions that hold the powerful accountable. And they're doing that because they have no defense to the criminal activity of the president, and he is the leader of their party. And in reality, that's why they are trying to attack the Hunter Biden investigation, which was an exhaustive investigation done by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. And now we have a special counsel who's on the precipice of charging Donald Trump with another indictment. But the special counsel, by regulation, is completely independent from the Biden Justice Department, which is exactly the point of it. So there is actually no basis to say that this is somehow a political interference or a weaponization, as they say, of the Department of Justice. In fact, based on my experience, I'm shocked that Hunter Biden was even charged with these crimes. If you look at the history of civil and criminal enforcement of tax issues, and just look at Roger Stone's case, he effectively did the same thing as Hunter Biden, and he simply paid a fine. So the fact that he's even taking a plea deal, in my mind, demonstrates a two-tiered system of justice against Hunter Biden, not at all in favor of Donald Trump or the Republicans.
Wow, two tiers.
All right,
Two tiers of justice. At least they agree with us. So I think that's interesting now. We both think that there are two tiers of justice in this country. Isn't that amazing? How's this country going to continue to work if we both have that opinion? And as we've talked about, once you start investigating each side, once they cross the Rubicon and it turns into this Trump prosecution, like this is their entire basis for existence, Republicans turn back, they go and prosecute the Bidens, and now AOC says, we got to strike back again. Maybe the DOJ should go after Ivanka Trump now, because it's never enough for these people. The bloodlust continues. They don't want to look at their side and say, yeah, you know what, maybe the Biden crime family is involved in nefariousness to a level that is beyond even what we can comprehend. They just, instead of addressing the subject, instead of focusing on Hunter and Joe and these very credible whistleblowers, they just wake up, point their fingers at everybody else. Oh, well, what about them? What about Ivanka? What about Jared Kushner? Oh, what about Ivana? Oh, what about on and on we go. Here's AOC.
And when we talk about political influence, we are not here today, unfortunately, because the facts have brought us here. We are here today.
Yes, we are. The whistleblowers showed up with a bunch of facts.
Because
that's why we're here.
Donald Trump is exerting an influence campaign in Congress when he is no longer president of the United States.
Did either of these whistleblowers say Donald Trump pressured them to come out and reveal themselves at all? Did Mr. X feel compelled from Donald Trump's tweets, truths?
In addition to that, if we want to talk about charges that have been dismissed, and if we do want to follow the evidence, perhaps we should discuss Ivanka Trump's investigation, who was close to being charged with felony fraud, after Donald Trump's personal attorney provided political contributions to the local DA. Those charges were dismissed, and ultimately we saw that DA Vance, President Trump's attorney, provided over $50,000 in political contributions after the case was dismissed.
What does this have to do with anything we're talking about here?
I would hope, if we are following the evidence, that we are willing, that this committee, if this committee is going to go there, that they be willing to open investigations into the dismissal of charges against Ivanka Trump. And, by the way,
who's she looking at?
If the gentlelady from Georgia wanted to follow evidence, we should also take a look at, hypothetically, a case where sex trafficking charges against a 17-year-old girl potentially.
The gentlelady's time's expired.
Yeah, pipe down.
Chair now recognizes.
Yeah, you're out of time. All right, enough out of you, AC. Good job there, James Comer. All right, cut her off. She's done. All right, quit your rambling. You're talking about trafficking? Are you going to talk about Hunter? What was he doing in Romania and Ukraine? all these different places on all of these different videos talk about trafficking. They all, they screech about women's rights. Hunter is the biggest abuser of women in the federal White House government. It's ridiculous. All right. So Comer says, enough out of you. All right, enough. So we move on, and then we wrap it up with Jamie Raskin. Now, he's actually going to get into it with these whistleblowers for a few minutes here, and he's directly asking them questions, and we see how they handle this with ease.
And I want to thank both the witnesses for their testimony and for appearing with us today. It seems to me that a lot of your testimony has been about the problem of prosecutorial discretion and the traditional tug of war between investigators who characteristically want to charge as many offenses as they've come across, and prosecutors who are more attuned to the rigors of the courtroom and the complexity of forensic evidence. And I admit, as a former state assistant attorney general, I see it more from the prosecutor's standpoint than the investigator's standpoint. But Mr. Shapley, would you concede that there are lots of crimes that are identified by investigators that are not actually charged by prosecutors routinely? I'll give you an example. In the recent prosecution, the recent indictment of Donald Trump for retaining government documents that he unlawfully took, according to the indictment, he was charged only with possessing those documents that were recovered after the August 2022 search warrant, but he had hundreds of documents that were recovered before that, 15 boxes that were recovered in January and then after the grand jury subpoena in June. But the prosecutors decided not to charge any of those as offenses. They said they were going to take the most egregious offenses and charge those. Is that unfamiliar to you, that kind of decision by a prosecutor?
Just regular prosecutorial discretion. Sometimes you have these close cases. You're like, well, I don't know who swung first, and maybe it was self-defense, and it's hard to tell here. What was the speed limit? I don't know. All right, so I'm not going to charge you. You know what? I'm just going to give you a warning here today. Was that this case?
Can't speak to anything related to the Trump investigation, but the issue here with this case is that it wasn't just investigators that agreed with these charges. In Exhibit 2 in my testimony, it clearly shows a prosecution recommendation report where it says right in the document that the Assistant United States Attorneys and Department of Justice Tax Division agreed with those recommended charges. And then again, and as Special Agent Ziegler alluded to, in late 2022.
And they were recommended to whom?
To Department of Justice. So the prosecution recommendation report is referred to the Department of Justice Tax Division for approval, discretion, or declination.
Right, but then it all went to the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, right?
So that's not entirely accurate because, Department of Justice Tax Division up through March 16th of 2023 had not yet approved, provided discretion, or declined charges. So U.S. Attorney Weiss had no authority to charge any of those charges without the Department of Justice Tax Division's approval beforehand.
And I'd like to say something about this real quick. So,
well, let me come back to you because I only have a limited amount of time and I've got questions for you. But in fact, Mr. Ziegler, you say that Hunter Biden's unpaid taxes were around $2 million, and he's now paid those back taxes, as I understand it, and he's been criminally charged for not paying taxes. Will you just explain how people can be charged for not paying taxes even after they've made amends and gone forward to pay them?
So under the statute, when someone fails to timely pay their taxes, usually due April 15th, once that date occurs, they have a known tax liability and they fail to pay it, the crime has already been committed. The fact that they paid the taxes after, that's a mitigating factor that the judge can use their discretion at sentencing. But I would like to make one reference that this does not include the over $100,000 in additional tax due and owing that was not charged related.
No, you made yourself clear. You thought there were additional charges that were laid on the table and not pursued by U.S. Attorney Weiss, the Trump appointee. But Mr. Shapley,
Trump appointee,
you testified
who had to get
the
approval
critical
from
moment
Biden.
in your decision to blow the whistle in the Hunter Biden investigation was the October 7th meeting 2022 that you had with U.S. Attorney David Weiss. And up until that point, you say you were willing to chalk up the differences with prosecutors to the typical, quote, investigator versus prosecutor type thing, which is what I think this is all about. But you say on page 28 of your transcript, if I wasn't in the October 7th meeting, my red line might not have been crossed, and I think you reaffirmed that today. Now, as I understand it, what crossed your red line is that in that meeting, you understood Mr. Weiss to be saying that he did not have the authority to bring charges in D.C. or California without the approval of the U.S. attorneys for those districts. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. But in a letter that he sent to Chairman Jordan in June, U.S. Attorney Weiss stated, and I quote, "I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges." He went on to explain that in considering charges in districts outside Delaware, usual DOJ practice would be, quote, "to contact the U.S. Attorney's Office for the district in question and determine whether it wants to partner on the case." Now, if that office declined, he would request and be granted authority to bring the charge himself under, quote, "special attorney status" from the Attorney General pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 515. Now, to try to clear this up, Mr. Shapley, let's go back to March 2022, when, as you explained on page 153 of the transcript, the U.S. Attorney for D.C. declined to partner with Mr. Weiss to bring the 2014 and 2015 charges in D.C. After that decision by the U.S. Attorney for D.C., Mr. Weiss continued to discuss those charges with all of you. In fact, Mr. Ziegler, on page 39 of your transcript, you described how in September 2022, you had a meeting in which U.S. Attorney Weiss expressed some concerns about those charges, including that in 2015, Hunter Biden was in the throes of his drug addiction after the death of his brother. And in that meeting, Mr. Weiss tells you, and I quote, "I'm still weighing it." Now, Mr. Ziegler, in September 2022, Mr. Weiss was telling you that he was the one weighing whether to bring the 2014 and 2015 charges. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Now, coming back to the October 7th, 2022 meeting, Mr. Shapley, according to you on page 155, Mr. Weiss said that, quote, he decided not to charge 2014 and 2015.
He's trying to draw some ambiguities between their two statements. Very long-winded here, but he is going through the depot of Mr. Ziegler, going through the depot of Mr. Shapley, and he's saying, you guys are a little bit inconsistent here. What's going on?
It seems to me this October 7th, 2022 meeting, which you've described as a red line, is just a misunderstanding.
Oh, that's
that after the U.S. Attorney in D.C. declined to partner on the 14 and 15 charges, Mr. Weiss took a good hard look at those charges himself and ultimately decided not to charge them and therefore not to seek the special attorney status. He may have been right about that. He may have been wrong, as you guys make your case for, but it was his decision. Isn't that right, Mr. Shapley?
No, that's not supported by the facts.
Really? Well, which facts is it not supported by?
His emails?
His own admissions in the October 7th, 2022 meeting that I documented contemporaneously. And the only piece of
But he contradicts what you're saying. Do you agree that? He doesn't agree with what you're saying about that meeting. Now, I wasn't at that October 7th, 2022 meeting.
I don't think he's contradicting it. He's just being waffly about it.
But while what was said at the meeting over 2.5 years ago may be a little ambiguous or unclear today.
So there's another one. Okay, so it's just confusion. All right, so yours is a little bit different than his statement, although it's not even really consequential. It doesn't go to the crux of the argument. Both of them are saying Weiss said I didn't have the authority. The specifics of it, even if there is a little ambiguity there, which I don't even agree that there is, the ultimate outcome is that they're saying Weiss didn't have the authority to charge, which means this is a lie. I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where and when and whether to file charges. The whistleblowers are saying that is a lie. He does not have that authority. He has to go to another jurisdiction like DC or California where there is a Biden appointed attorney who rejects him. Then he goes back. And now there is some ambiguity here about whether the investigation is ongoing. Like if we wake up tomorrow and David Weiss files, or gets special counsel status or something, then we'll say, okay, well, I guess the investigation is ongoing. So if the investigation is ongoing, then certainly you're not about to take a plea deal, okay? Because you have done your due diligence. A plea deal, the reason why this is turning into such a lie is because a plea deal is generally a global resolution. They're not going to enter a plea deal for two petty misdemeanors and a diversion felony agreement and then charge him again, it's going to conclude the case. And I don't expect to see more charges coming. They're trying to squeeze this one through. The only thing that has really stopped them are these heroic whistleblowers.
Mr. Weiss's letter to Chairman Jordan could not be more clear. He had, quote, ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file the charges. So if there's any ambiguity, it's got to go to U.S. Attorney Weiss, Donald Trump's handpicked U.S. Attorney for Delaware. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back.
All right, that's
I
about all they got, and it's pretty pathetic. It's just confusion. It's just where our lines are crossed. We know that there's prosecutorial discretion. Guess what? So do these guys. Gary Shapley's been doing this for decades. He knows exactly what prosecutorial discretion is. And I'm sure in his history of cases, he's seen many instances where maybe something he thought should have been brought wasn't brought, or vice versa. And this is not one of them. Two of them, two whistleblowers now coming out saying that the Biden crime family is involved and in bed with the DOJ and the IRS in a cover-up to hide their criminality. And the Democrats say it's all because the system is rigged against Hunter, the same system that his daddy operates. And so, my friends, it's a joke. We'll see how this continues to unfold and whether they go after other people in the Trump team. We know they're going after 16 people in Michigan for being so-called false electors, and they want the justice system to go even harder against Ivanka and Trump acolytes. So we'll continue to cover, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, we will leave it there. We covered some good ground on the day. We got Hunter news, of course, and them complaining that he is being unfairly treated. We heard from Mr. Joseph Ziegler, whistleblower number 2, known as Mr. X until today. Gary Shapley came out, gave us very great details on what he has seen and all of the involvement that he was involved in this case. And of course, there's 20 plus shell companies and the $8 million at the low end in tax problems and tax cover-ups, all out of this hearing with two very heroic whistleblowers. And so, my friends, now it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this and more from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, on YouTube, on Rumble. And don't forget, my friends, that we've got a new website now called robertgovea.com, where you can get various show reports in writing about summaries of the videos. You can see how to use this mind map, and you can get access to this entire mind map and all the PDFs, all the show notes. You can browse this around at your leisure. Just sign up for free, robertgovea.com, for the newsletter. But my friends, let's see what you have to say about this. Our first one here came in from Pope Rackets Touched Me. And this one, I think, came in this morning from our members-only morning stream. It says, watch this get to the Supreme Court with the ultimate self-own. Yeah, that was talking about the false slate of electors. They're alleging those 16 people in Michigan who are the upper echelon of the Republican Party there. Part of the reason the AG is charging 16 of those people is because they're all co-chairs of the party, all highly involved. Now they're going to be under the gun of criminal charges over this next election. It's going to take out a huge part of the GOP there. Very intentional. FMF Doc says, sorry, late, was shopping for mom at the store. Hello, watchers and Rob. Always a good reason to be late. You know, sometimes it's not acceptable. Sometimes I will not accept your, excuse for your tardiness. But that's okay. Shopping for mom is always acceptable. Shout out to FMF Doc's mom in the house. Hopefully you got her some good stuff. All right, thanks. Good to see you, FMF. We have another one here from Red Blooded American, became a supporter. Welcome aboard, Red Blooded American. Happy to have you. We'll have our members only morning stream tomorrow, so we'll look forward to seeing you there. 2012 Jameson says speech and debate is protected. Indeed it is. And Jameson says, sent you an email document. Enjoy the Kagan decision. I saw that, Jameson. I did start reading it. Jameson sent me some research that he was working on. And thank you for that, Jameson. It is interesting. And you are doing your homework, my friend. I was poking through that a little bit. Some good stuff in there. We had another one. Thank you, Jameson. This one came in from Beyond Geostars. Says, please make it make sense, Rob. Please. I'm trying, Gio. There's only so much you can do with these people. I think they have to spin themselves out a little bit. Then it'll all become clear. Marcel says, Rob, you are not in my feed. Are you shadow banned? I think so. I don't have any hard proof of that. But I do feel like our views to impressions ratio is smaller than it should be. In other words, we're not getting as many opportunities to be seen. And I think that's actually, I think there is actually some evidence of this because I can see it in my analytics and I can also see it on their official policies, which is YouTube admits openly that they will suppress non-authoritative sources in favor of elevating authoritative sources. This is a news channel. Have you ever, news, politics, law, like it goes in the news and politics category. Have you ever searched for a news topic? It's all mainstream garbage. Okay, it's all Channel 5, Channel 10, Channel 12. Search for anything. They don't ever show independent creators anymore we're covering the same stuff that they're covering. I show you the documents here. We dig up the actual documents. These other news channels, they don't. They just, have some news anchor reads a 2-minute blurb and they show it on YouTube. So I think that they are suppressing us. It's all good. That's the reason why I really appreciate you guys going over to robertgovea.com and signing up for the newsletter. And by the way, when you go over there and sign up for the newsletter, there are reports now. So every segment is turned into a report, including the live show. So this was yesterday's show. And if you go over there, you can see the full show is summarized here. So you can read through it and say, oh, maybe I want to watch that show. Maybe I don't. You scroll down to the bottom, say, maybe I want to watch this one about the J6 appeal that went up to the Supreme Court. We talked about that yesterday. So this one's also summarized for you. So you can read through it, say, I want to watch that video. It's great. And then this, if you sign up for the daily newsletter, then all of this will be summarized for you and sent to you every single day in an email that summarizes the show. And so that way we can stay connected on the internet in case something happens on email, in case something happens on YouTube or on Rumble or anywhere else. And if you, I know we've got some forwarders out there, some email forwarders out there. So if you forward, these emails to friends and other colleagues and just say, hey, they were talking about this issue. Remember we were talking about this at lunch. Here's that video. You can forward those newsletter emails, and that would really, really help us get that exposure that YouTube is sort of taken away from us. So that's how we're going to be a little bit more insulated over this next election. We're trying to get robust, and robertgovea.com is where you can sign up for the newsletter, and we'll stay in touch. And if anything happens, right, I can just send you an email. That's the problem. If anything happens on YouTube, I can't even communicate with you at all. I can't post a video. I can't post a comment. I can't do anything. So the newsletter makes sure we stay connected. And it's totally free. And you get access to the mind map and all the PDFs, and you get a great summary email every day. So it's all good stuff. This is from Marcel. Thank you, Marcel. And we had another one from Good Logic. Is this Joe? Good Logic in the house? Says, it is Good Logic. What's up, Joe? Says, I speculated that Raskin chose the purple covering to intimidate the witnesses by evoking images of Prison Mike and the Dementors. Oh my gosh. Prison Mike. Yeah, he's from The Office. Hey, Prison Mike, I'm gonna go this and gonna do this. I was trying to grab the image. Prison Mike. Oh no. All right, here it is. This is the first image that I got pulled up. Oh no. All right. It's too good. Here it is. This is Prison Mike, if you're not familiar with Prison Mike. There's Prison Mike. Oh, no. All right. So shout out to Good Logic. And hey, are you subscribed over to Good Logic's channel? Joe, we got to have a chat at some point, man. I know we got to connect. And I appreciate you being here. Thanks for the tip. Good Logic has a great YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed over there, you should be. And I check in from time to time, Joe. I pop in, I check in on your streams. Hopefully you're having fun, my man. You're doing great work. So Good Logic, make sure you're subscribed over there. Thanks for stopping by, Joe. We'll definitely connect. We had this one from Salty. Says, when the Hunter's accountant asked for receipts, the video is not what he was thinking of. No. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hunter's accountant sends an email. Hey, what did you do for this $5,000? he sends him a video. He's like, this is what I did. And the accountant's like, no. That's not what I was asking for. Good to see you, Salty. This one came in from Mike, says, the left talks about white privilege all the time, but when it comes to Hunter, he is the victim and has no privilege at all. No, he's the victim. I guess he's the victim of Trump, who's not even in charge of the government. Trump is putting pressure on Republicans to charge him out of his own DOJ. What? We're living in bizarro world. NY Renal says, Rep. Goldman is shocked. The agents went over when people get charged. Hunter had a history of tax evasion. He didn't file, then filed false returns, like claiming his dad hotel rooms and other club memberships. That's why Goldman is shocked. I honestly, these people they're just running cover. Like literally, they're just running cover. That's it. They just don't even, I don't even think they care what they say. They just come out. They've got talking points. Say, hey, write me talking points about why Hunter Biden is innocent. They go out, they read them. But I mean, the evidence is clear. There's mounds of evidence, and it's voluntary ignorance or willful ignorance. Dolphin Fan is the man. Thank you, Dolphin, bringing in 5 new members into our amazing community. Big welcomes to Teeny BB, Paul E. We got Donnie Danko's in the house. Welcome aboard, Mads. Albert W. also in the house, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. 5 new members coming in on our community. And so we'll see everybody tomorrow. Thank you, Dolphin. Appreciate that, my friend. Adesia says, I had to take Willie to the bad dog vet. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good. Well, sometimes they got to go to the vet, and hopefully he's healthy and well, and he's going to be a real good boy when he gets home. Hey, Jameson says, use whatever you want. Use whatever you want. It's open source now. I thank you for that. Okay, so Jameson sent over some research, says use whatever you want. You wrote a nice narrative there, Jameson, so thank you for that. I'll take a look. I'm working on some more written content. Written, more produced. What we do here is, live, and it's all assembled kind of on the fly. But I want to try some articulated arguments, where I can really craft together an argument and script it out a little bit. So I appreciate that, Jameson. I'll hang on to it. Salty Sarge says, a clarification from yesterday's show. The first line in the song, Jumpin' Jack Flash from Rolling Stones was, I was born in a crossfire hurricane. The plot from the movie explains the rest. Is that true? That's pretty weird. All right, that's a fun one from Salty Sarge. Good to see you, Salty. Over on Rumble, and we've got Amanda Lyons. Thank you, Amanda. No question on that one, but a very nice super chat. Thank you, Amanda Lyons. Hopefully you're having a beautiful day. And Salty Sarge over on Rumble says, Jumpin' Jack Flash, the movie, has a British intelligence officer contacting Whoopi Goldberg via the internet, who is trying to escape the clutches of KGB Russian agents. Both stories are fiction. That's interesting. I have not heard of it. And that must be some old Whoopi Goldberg, because she hasn't been in movies in quite a while, right? Yeah. But anyway, some good knowledge there. Some good pop culture knowledge that I don't know much about at all. Hey, we had Crash to Contrary. Good to see you, says. Watched from beginning to end. Comer is working hard, but this hearing is not moving the needle, period. I expected more. Sorry to say. That's from Crash to Contrary. Well, that's an opinion on it. Yeah, and you watched the whole thing? I think they're working hard. I think we're still on this gate. Early in this game, I'm still optimistic about it. Remember, these take a lot of momentum, and these are financial crimes, and they're very, very boring. So we'll see. We'll see if anything happens. Maybe not, but we just need some. Remember, there's only so much the Republicans can do also. They can pass resolutions, but it'll never go over to the Senate. They can start impeachment inquiries. That's what we'd like to see. We're waiting for something like that. They could, of course, hold up nominees like they're doing in the Senate. And I think Rand Paul's having some momentum there. But I think we're at the start of this game. We want it to climax. We want the big climax to be, middle of next year. Somewhere around July, August, September, October of next year, when a lot of this stuff can start really, really percolating. So we'll keep our eye on it until then. But it's a fair opinion. I understand. I also would like to see, handcuffs, but we'll get there. Trust2Kid says, Mr. X and Gary Shapley have a zillion times more integrity than all of those Democrats. No doubt about it. Hey, V clipped the lyrics. Says, 1-2, I was born in a crossfire hurricane. Indeed. Those are the lyrics. That's the truth. Very interesting. Very curious. Okay, and so thank you, my friends. Those were very generous donos, and I appreciate all your support on this lovely Wednesday. Let's say hello to our friends on Twitter before we wrap it up and go on over to our locals members only after party, which will be taking place here in a short minute. Oh man, what did they do to Twitter? Something changed on the Twitters, huh? The video's not there anymore. Look what they did. So our video's not there. This is the current video. But they moved it over to a broadcast page. So this is the broadcast page. But this is weird. You can't see anything. There's no comments on the broadcast page. All right. So they're playing around with some stuff. And oh yeah, hey, oh my goodness. Hey, watch it, Rob. These guys look mean. We got some angry vegetables who are unhappy with my Field of Greens commentary. It says vegans are evil, eat meat. I have deep emotional feelings, says this carrot. All right, he's upset. Don't be mean to greens. Potatoes. These are just the grumpy ones, okay? Don't listen to these characters, all right? Most of the vegetables, they're very happy. They want to be eaten. That's why they come bursting out of the ground, okay? Those are leftist Democrat vegetables. Don't worry about them. These are patriotic American vegetables. Field of Greens, baby. That's why they come popping out of the ground, happy as can be. Eat me, eat me. We don't indulge or eat cranky Democrat vegetables. Get your good vegetables at fieldofgreens.com. And don't forget to use code Robert. Now, Darkside Digital says, hey, Rob, something about the Weiss was a Trump appointee thing. Ted Cruz actually shed some lights on that, too, explaining how they are chosen. Starting at the 12-minute mark in this video, seems worth getting this info out there. Yes, indeed. That sounds like a great video, actually. I'm going to watch that one. Maybe we'll clip that for later. Yeah, that sounds like a good one. I wonder if we did talk about that one. Maybe not, but so that's a great link. So thank you, Darkside Digital. That's over on Twitter. And Danny says, yes, Danny, I don't know what they did on Twitter. I don't know what they did. They changed something. So we'll have to see what they do, which means we don't have a lot of Twitter comments. But that's okay. We are going to leave it there, my friends, and head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. One final reminder, head on over to robertgovea.com, sign up for the daily newsletter so that you don't miss anything when we post, and you can get the daily reports. Check out the Mindmap tutorial video so you can access all the PDFs and all the other documents that we go through here on the regular. Join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you're a YouTube member, grab the private Telegram group, which is where you can join us for the after party, which is where we're going in just a few short minutes. Want to thank the mods and the meme smiths who mod down the fort for us and keep things nice and orderly and on track for us. Big shout outs to our friend Vientikis Prime, K Beans in the house, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole. We got Zulu. We got Beyond Geo Stars. We got Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek 909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me. All modding down the fort for us. Shout outs to our meme smiths, Geegum Geegum, Sleepy Dog Lee, and Nathan N810. Appreciate everybody who helps keep this train on the tracks. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party. We'd love to see you there. But if we don't, we will be back here tomorrow to do it all again. We'll see what else we have in store. I'm sure it's going to be a lot. And we hope to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.